My fork hovered over a cold slice of meatloaf when my wife of 23 years decided to blow up everything I thought I knew about us. It was a Tuesday night, nothing special, just another dinner at the dining room table with our daughter Brooke scrolling through her phone and Lauren cutting her asparagus like she was preparing for surgery. Before I go any further, if you're new here to Anonymous Confessions, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. These real family drama stories hit different when you've lived through something similar yourself. Trust me, this one gets wild. Then Lauren spoke. I want an open relationship. She didn't look up from her plate when she said it, just kept slicing that asparagus with precision, the kind of calm that comes from rehearsing a speech for weeks. I set my fork down and studied her face. Those high cheekbones that made me fall for her in college, they'd hardened over years of corporate law and something else I couldn't name back then. Quiet contempt, maybe. Her blonde hair was pulled into that severe bun she wore to intimidate people in the courtroom. Tonight, apparently, I was the opposition. An open relationship? I repeated. The words tasted wrong, like milk that had turned sour but you'd already taken a sip. Lauren finally glanced at me. I've given this considerable thought. We can maintain our domestic arrangement while pursuing other interests. It's very civilized. Civilized. That word had been her favorite for years. She used it when she took the promotion that meant 60-hour weeks and left me alone with Brooke. She used it when she moved into the guest room because my snoring supposedly disturbed her beauty sleep. She used it when she started coming home at midnight, claiming client dinners that somehow lasted until the bars closed. But here's the thing about the word civilized. Lauren always used it for situations that benefited her while costing someone else everything. I leaned back in my chair. She thought she had me cornered. The blue-collar husband who was never quite good enough for the corporate lawyer, the salvage yard owner who embarrassed her at firm events, the chump who'd built her a perfect suburban life while she plotted her escape. She had no idea what was about to hit her. Well, she pushed. What's it going to be? I smiled. Not the defeated grimace she expected, a real smile. Warm, genuine, the kind that made her blink twice in confusion. I accept. The words hung in the air like smoke from a candle someone just blew out. Lauren's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Brooke's thumbs froze on her phone screen. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. You what? I accept, I repeated, reaching for my water glass. The open relationship sounds fascinating. Lauren recovered first. That lawyer's mask slipped back into place so fast I almost admired it. Good, I'm glad we can handle this like adults. But I caught it, the tiny crack in her voice, the uncertainty behind her eyes. This wasn't the script she'd rehearsed. She expected anger, tears, maybe a dramatic exit where I slammed the door and she got to play the victim. Instead, I was calmly finishing my meatloaf while her perfect plan started falling apart. When does it start? I asked, keeping my voice light, almost friendly. This arrangement with Langston, the grand opening, so to speak? Her cheeks flushed. We already, that is, Gregory and I, have been involved in an inappropriate relationship behind my back for months? Yes, I suspected as much. The late nights, the way you rushed to freshen up the second you walked through the door. Either you were having an affair, or you developed a sudden passion for midnight gym sessions. Brooke made a disgusted sound. I'm eating here. Sorry, sweetie. I turned back to Lauren, who was gripping her knife like she wanted to use it on my face. So, what's the schedule? Are you moving in with him, or is this more of a part-time arrangement? We're working out the details. Of course you are. And his wife, Natalie, is it? How's she taking the news? Lauren's face went pale. That's Gregory's problem. Well, this should be interesting. I stood up and picked up my plate. Thanks for dinner, honey. Very illuminating. I headed for the kitchen, leaving Lauren staring at my back. Through the window, I could see the lights of our neighbors' houses, each one hiding its own secrets. The Andersons with their frequent late-night arguments, the Garcias dealing with their own family challenges. Now we'd be the new topic at every dinner table on the street. I scraped my plate into the sink and thought about Gregory Langston. Tall, silver-haired, that practiced charm that impressed clients and helped him ruin marriages. I'd met him at Lauren's firm events, watched him work a room like a politician, soft hands and a firm handshake, the kind of man who'd never changed his own oil or swung a hammer in frustration, the kind of man Lauren thought she deserved. Behind me, chairs scraped against hardwood. Dinner was officially over. Lauren's heels clicked towards the stairs, probably to call Gregory and report on our conversation. Brooke shuffled past, muttering something about dysfunctional families and college applications. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, drop a comment about your own experience with betrayal. Anonymous Confessions is all about real stories from real people. Like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because trust me, the best part is coming. I stood at the sink, watching water swirl down the drain, and allowed myself a moment of genuine satisfaction. Lauren thought she'd played her trump card. She had no idea I'd been holding a royal flush for 3 weeks. Ever since I followed her to that downtown Hilton and watched her meet Langston in the lobby. Ever since I hired a private investigator to document their secret meetings. Ever since I contacted Natalie Langston and discovered she had her own collection of evidence. Lauren wanted an open relationship. She was about to get more openness than she ever bargained for. 3 weeks earlier, I was a different man. Suspicious, but hopeful. Hurt, but willing to give my wife the benefit of the doubt. That version of me followed Lauren to the Hilton, parking across the street like a concerned husband, hoping to prove my fears were wrong. Instead, I watched her walk into the lobby at 2:47 on a Wednesday afternoon, wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. She greeted Gregory Langston in a way that left no doubt about what they were there for. I sat in my pickup truck for 20 minutes, engine running, trying to process what I had seen. Then I drove home, called my lawyer, and hired the best private investigator in the city. 2 days later, I had pictures. A week after that, I had hotel receipts, credit card statements, and a timeline going back 8 months. But the real breakthrough came when I found Natalie Langston. Gregory's wife lived in a big colonial-style home in the historic district, the kind of place that screamed old money and carefully guarded secrets. I expected to find a broken woman, someone to share coffee and mutual disappointment with. Instead, I found a woman who was ready for war. "You're Lauren's husband," Natalie said when she opened the door. She was shorter than I had imagined, maybe 5'3", auburn hair and eyes like green glass. "I was wondering when you'd show up." We met at the Anchor, a quiet dive bar where neither of our spouses would ever think to look. Natalie arrived first, settled into a corner booth, ordered a martini. "So," she said, after I'd gotten a beer, "how long did you know?" 3 weeks. She smiled. 6 months for me, and it wasn't a pleasant discovery. Here's what Natalie told me that night. Gregory thought he was so clever, but he'd always been predictable. Same pattern every time. A younger colleague, expensive hotels, promises he never intended to keep. Your wife isn't his first complicated situation. She's just the latest in a long line of ambitious lawyers who thought sleeping with a senior partner would advance their career. She took a sip of her martini and studied me over the rim. The question is, what are we going to do about it? That conversation lasted 4 hours. By the time we left, we had phone numbers, email addresses, and a mutual commitment to finishing this properly. Natalie turned out to be a forensic accountant, a woman with a talent for finding hidden assets and buried secrets. She'd been documenting Gregory's affairs for years, building a case that would leave him facing serious professional consequences. She just needed the right moment. "The Christmas party," she said, shaking my hand in the parking lot. "Gregory always brings Lauren as his date, thinking I'm too dignified to make a scene. This year will be different." Now standing in my garage workshop, I reviewed everything we'd gathered.
Photos of Lauren and Gregory entering and leaving hotels, credit card receipts, email exchanges that violated multiple company policies. But the crown jewel was the recording. Natalie had placed a simple voice-activated device in Gregory's home office. The previous week, it had captured a conversation that would change everything. "The partners are announcing promotions next month. I can guarantee you'll be on the list, but we need to be discreet until then." "How discreet?" Lauren asked. "Discreet in public, less so in private. Once you make partner, we can be more open about our arrangement." "And your wife?" "Natalie isn't a problem. She knows her place." I listened to that recording 12 times, memorizing every smug word. Natalie was right. Gregory was predictable. He thought he was managing 2 women while he controlled everything.
He had no idea we were comparing notes. My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. "Confirmed for Friday, table 12, somewhere that photographs well." The firm's Christmas party. Lauren had been talking about it for weeks, debating between 2 dresses. She'd settled on the navy blue one with the plunging neckline, probably because Gregory had complimented her in it before. She expected to walk in on his arm, the brilliant lawyer who'd managed to have her cake and eat it too. Instead, she'd find her husband waiting at table 12 with Gregory's wife, both of us smiling like we'd just won the lottery. Friday night arrived faster than I expected. The Willow Creek Country Club glittered with enough Christmas lights to power a small town. Ice sculptures of reindeer flanked the entrance. A string quartet played holiday classics. I adjusted my tie and checked my watch. 7:15. Perfect timing. Lauren had left an hour earlier, claiming she needed to network. In reality, she was probably in Gregory's office, sharing a drink and congratulating themselves on how clever they were. I parked my pickup between a BMW and a Mercedes, ignored the valet who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Natalie was waiting near the coat check, stunning in an emerald green dress that matched her eyes. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, elegant enough to fit in, dramatic enough to be unforgettable. "You clean up nice," she said, taking my arm. "You look like a woman with a plan." Several, actually, all of them leading to accountability. We walked into the ballroom together, and I felt the shift, that subtle change in attention when people notice something unexpected. Ryan Whitaker, the salvage yard owner, walking in with Natalie Langston, the senior partner's wife. Conversations faltered mid-sentence. Table 12 was perfectly positioned, close enough to the dance floor to be noticed, far enough from the head table to avoid an immediate confrontation. Natalie had chosen well. "There they are," she murmured, nodding toward the bar. Lauren stood next to Gregory, laughing at something he'd whispered. Navy blue dress, grandmother's pearls, the diamond earrings I'd given her last Christmas. She looked confident, relaxed, like a woman who'd successfully navigated a difficult situation. Gregory held court with several junior associates, silver hair perfectly coiffed, tuxedo impeccable, gesturing with his martini glass like he was telling a war story from his early days at the firm. Neither of them had noticed us yet. "Champagne?" I asked. "Something stronger. It's going to be a long night." Lauren noticed us 25 minutes later. I watched her scan the room during a lull in conversation, her gaze moving systematically from table to table. When her eyes found mine, her champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. For a moment, she just stared. Then her gaze shifted to Natalie, and I saw the exact moment understanding hit. Her face went pale beneath her makeup. Her free hand gripped the bar for support. Gregory was still talking, oblivious, his back to our table, gesturing animatedly about some courtroom victory. Lauren murmured something in his ear. He turned, followed her gaze across the room. His smile faltered, his martini glass slipped from his fingers. The sound of crystal hitting marble was surprisingly loud in that elegant ballroom. Conversations paused, heads turned toward the noise. Just in time to see Gregory Langston staring at his wife and her unexpected dinner companion. Natalie's face remained perfectly composed. Gregory's face cycled through surprise, confusion, and finally dawning realization. His wife, who was supposed to be at home with a migraine, sitting with Lauren's husband like they were old friends. The whispers started immediately. Is that Gregory's wife? Why is she with Ryan Langston? Where's Lauren supposed to be sitting? Natalie rose gracefully, smoothing her dress. I think it's time for introductions, don't you? We crossed the ballroom together, weaving between tables as conversations died in our wake. The string quartet kept playing, but their Christmas melody sounded strangely wrong against the tension filling the room. Lauren and Gregory remained frozen by the bar, trapped between their public personas and their private panic. Gregory, Natalie said warmly, rising on her toes to kiss her husband's cheek, you look surprised to see me. Natalie, I thought you said you had a migraine. I felt much better after I spoke with Ryan. We've been having the most interesting conversation about mutual interests. Lauren found her voice. Ryan, what are you doing here? Attending my company Christmas party with my date. I smiled at Natalie. You remember Natalie, don't you? Gregory's wife. The silence stretched around us. 200 guests, all pretending to mind their own business, all straining to hear every word. Gregory cleared his throat. Perhaps we should find a more private place to— Oh, I think it's private enough right here, Natalie interrupted. After all, we're all friends here, aren't we? Just two couples enjoying a lovely evening out. She emphasized the word couples just enough to make her meaning crystal clear. Lauren's champagne glass began to tremble. In fact, I said, I was hoping to get some advice from Gregory about workplace relationships, professional boundaries, that sort of thing. Gregory's face turned gray. I don't think this is the appropriate venue. Really? Because Lauren was just telling me how your firm encourages open communication, transparency, bringing things into the light. The champagne glass slipped from Lauren's fingers. It shattered against the marble floor. Champagne splashed onto her navy blue dress, leaving dark stains. The conversations around us stopped completely. Oh dear, Natalie said, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. How clumsy. Not to worry, some stains eventually come out, others are permanent. Lauren stared at her ruined dress, then looked up at the sea of faces watching our little drama unfold. Her carefully constructed image was cracking, revealing the panic underneath. I need some air, she whispered. Excellent idea, I agreed. Gregory, why don't you help her? Natalie and I will hold down the fort. Gregory looked like he wanted to argue, but with half the firm watching, he had no choice. He took Lauren's arm and steered her toward the terrace doors, leaving Natalie and me standing by the bar, surrounded by broken glass and fascinated witnesses. Well, Natalie said, signaling the bartender, that went better than expected. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers and paperwork. The firm fired both Gregory and Lauren within days. The evidence portfolio Natalie had assembled was too complete to ignore. Lauren tried to call me again and again. I let most of the calls go to voicemail. When we finally spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard her, broken in a way that 23 years of marriage had never seen. You set this up, you and that woman. I didn't set anything up, Lauren. I just refused to pretend it hadn't already been destroyed. We can fix this. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Before I tell you how this ends, if you've made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe to Anonymous Confessions, and leave a comment about your own story. Sometimes sharing our pain is the first step towards healing it. Save the marriage? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The one you undermined when you decided to sleep with Gregory Langston in hotel rooms paid for with company money? It didn't mean anything. Then explain it to me. Help me understand how a woman asks her husband for an open relationship when she's already been sleeping with someone else for 8 months. Silence. That's what I thought. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Lauren signed the papers with a trembling hand. She'd lost weight. Her designer clothes hung loose on her frame. The confident lawyer who demanded an open relationship had been replaced by someone facing the consequences of her choices. I kept the house, the business, everything we'd built together. She kept her car and her personal effects. Brooke chose to stay with me. That decision surprised no one except Lauren. Our daughter had watched everything unfold with the brutal honesty of adolescence. She'd made her own judgment. The last time I saw Lauren, she was standing in a parking garage, leaning against her car, finally looking at me directly. "Was it worth it?" she asked. "Destroying everything we built together?" I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to pretend it hadn't already been destroyed. She started crying then, real tears, not the calculated ones I'd seen her use in court. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm so sorry." "I know you are." I walked away, left her there in the parking garage. It should have felt like a victory, but mostly it just felt like closing a book I once loved to read. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Lauren had found a job at a small firm in another city, handling routine legal matters for a fraction of her old salary. Gregory opened a solo practice, struggling to rebuild a reputation that might never recover. They weren't together anymore. Their connection hadn't survived being exposed to the light. One Saturday morning, Natalie appeared in my office doorway at the salvage yard. She looked different, lighter, like she'd been carrying something heavy that had finally been lifted. "I wanted to say goodbye," she said. "I'm moving to Seattle. My sister offered me a partnership." "That's great news. You deserve a fresh start." "So do you." She hesitated. "Ryan, what we did, it was necessary, but it's not who I want to be long-term." "I understand." "'Cause I'm not sure I do. We were both hurt. We responded. It felt right in the moment. But now you want to be someone who builds things instead of tearing them down." "Exactly," she smiled. "You always were perceptive." We talked for an hour about new beginnings and second chances, about the difference between justice and revenge, about the cost of carrying anger for too long. When she left, we shook hands like business partners concluding a successful deal. Brooke came home that afternoon with an acceptance letter from the state university, full scholarship. The smile on her face reminded me why some battles are worth fighting. I hugged her tight, thinking about the future she'd build for herself, the mistakes she'd avoid because she watched her parents make them first. Lauren wanted an open relationship. Instead, she gave us all the gift of truth. Messy, painful, but ultimately liberating. Sometimes the best response is simply refusing to carry someone else's deception any longer. Sometimes the best response is building something better from the wreckage they left behind. Sometimes the best response is living well. And that's the end of my story. How about yours?